Good evening. I'm happy to announce another public program in frame of the International Summer School Curating in Context, which is a presentation and a discussion that this evening I will moderate and have with the colleagues and friends from Slovenia, Croatia, and Serbia. And we have Jasmina Zaloznik and Vevar in Ljubljana, Marijana Cvetković in Belgrade, and Jasna Jasna Žmak in Zagreb, and myself and my colleagues in Skopje. And actually this discussion meant to think and to present and to reflect and to share among each other what is happening on what are our experiences in this time and period of crisis, and what kind of critical forms of knowledge, strategies, tactics, and politics of curating this crisis might generate or already started generating. And also what sort of entanglements are being reconfigured between new media, social media, online platforms, this kind of different online communications and teaching methods on one hand, and face-to-face interactions which are happening somewhere and as constitutive of performative practices and arts on the other hand. So there were a couple of questions that Slavcho Dimitrov and I, Biljana Tanurovska, I didn't present myself, try to point. And those are, we invited our colleagues to elaborate on different practices which are curatorial practices or their working practices in the context in which they are working, and the specific alternative for non-institutional forms that they can present of collaboration, knowledge production, and rethinking of what kind of events or environment we are representing the arts nowadays. And related to this, how this practice you have been affected by ongoing crisis in this pandemic, but not themselves or our tonight presenters, but also their colleagues, collaborators, friends, as artists, choreographers, performers, etc., dramaturgs. And again, how and to what extent you experimented in a different forms of practice. So that would be shortly, and just let's say dramaturgically, this event will be, this discussion will be held that each of them will present for 10 minutes, but Jasmina and Rok will present for 20 minutes, 10 of each other, but together in a form of probably dialogue between themselves because they work very closely. And then we will go with Marijana Cvetković and Jasna Jasna Žmak, and all of you can point out the questions afterwards that I will moderate with them. So we will have altogether, let's say, 40 minutes of presentations by tonight guests, but later on we will have another, I don't know, half an hour, let's say, of possibility to discuss, to question them for certain issues. So now I would like to shortly introduce Jasmina and Rok. Jasmina is a dramaturg, theatrologist, critic, and a producer, and her primary focus is in contemporary dance. She deals with historization, reflection, and fosters initiatives that help create more encouraging conditions for its development. She is a colleague and a collaborator, very close, of mine and of Lokomotiva as part of Nomad Dance Academy, but she's also part of Nomad Dance Academy Slovenia. And She's active in the City of Women Association and member of a professional guild associations like a Theater Critics and Researchers of Slovenia and Contemporary Dance Association Slovenia, among other things that she is involved in. In 2015, she received Ksenia Hribar Award for Dance in the category of Criticism, Dramaturgy and Theory. They closely collaborate together with Vevar, not only in Nomad Dance Academy Slovenia, but also co-curating together with other colleagues from Nomad Dance Slovenia co-festival. Very important, I would say, contemporary dance festival that it's happening in Ljubljana. And Rok Vevar is a publicist in the field of contemporary performing arts, historian, and archivist of contemporary dance, as well as he works as a dramaturg. He published numerous articles and reviews in a number of newspapers, in journals, as well as Slovenian, as well as international different. As a dramaturg, he collaborated with numerous artists from field of contemporary dance and theater in Slovenia, but also internationally. And in form of different independent programs, hold workshops and lectures for young critics, dramaturgs, etc., etc. And since 2010, he's also active member of Nomad Dance Academy platform, but also he's part of Nomad Dance Academy Slovenia. As I said, he co-curates the co-festival, and what it's also very important thing as part of Nomad Dance Academy, he started the program of archive, and he holds a very important archive on contemporary dance, which he shared with the rest of the public through the Nomad Dance Academy Slovenia and a project in collaboration with Museum of Contemporary Arts Metelkova in Ljubljana, etc., etc. And he was awarded a Ksenia Hribar Award, and he just, I think, published new monograph of Ksenia Hribar, if I'm not wrong. I didn't see it because we haven't seen each other live, and I don't hold up with many things. But this here I will stop. I didn't say everything. I just took the excerpts of their professional lives. But through their presentation, they will say much more where they are, their colleagues, and what it's going on. So I mute myself. So please, Jasmina and Rob, continue. Thank you.
Hello. We would like to say good evening to everybody, and we would like to thank Biljana for this extensive introduction. We decided that we are going to choose co-festival as example of curating in context, because we find perhaps this the most kind of pregnant and interesting topic to address in the proposed frame. I would just like at the beginning, as a dance historian, to say that the pandemic of COVID is not the first one that affected dance field. In the 1920s, tuberculosis was affected dance field extensively, and of course, in the 1980s, epidemic of AIDS in different contexts had a huge impact on certain dance communities. I would also like to say that co-festival was somehow founded because of the economic crisis in Slovenia at the time, and also under influence of the right-wing forces of Janez Janša at the time, who the Ministry of Culture cut budgets for culture in 2012 extensively. Pleskavica then had a huge reduction of money from the state, and so we decided to join forces of three festival model dance or programs. Model dance, which was supported by EU project, UKREP, and Pleskavica. So kind of co-festival grew out of the economic crisis. I think this co-curatorial effort that we that we somehow established in co-festival is so there are 5 curators or 4 now. It's a kind of consolidation or amplification of competencies that we have. As a team, as a group, we are stronger by sharing those competencies and amplifying them. We see a co-curating of co-festival among kind of confrontational platform for our also learning experiences. We see co-curating as a different confrontation of different temporalities. We extensively somehow want to see contemporary dance not only as a very present a phenomena, but something that has its past and that it's connected to the different cultural and dance context from the past, and of course practices. We like to introduce co-festival program lines every year with the certain topics, maybe set of topics or only one topic. Usually it's a kind of network of different topics that we want to elaborate. We decided at a certain point that we have to stop the, let's say, post-production of solo works. So we tend as much as we can to invite or commission works that are collective and that include more, let's say, group of dancers or choreographers. We want to keep in terms of kind of geography included in our program balance. We want to include international as well as regional and, let's say, artists that are situated in Ljubljana, of course, domestic artists. Our co-curatorial effort is also addressed to collaboration of our NGO, Noma Dance Academy Slovenia, with different local institutions like Kino Šiška, Center for Urban Culture, Mladinsko Theater, and Modern Gallery, plus Museum of Contemporary Art Metelkova, as where I keep my archive there. I have my archive in residency, but also we more and more try to include different program lines to be presented in, let's say, different spaces, not only theater spaces. Yeah. Okay.
In that sense, we are trying somehow to present different formats of works also, like not only like pieces that are complete, but also like joining like after talks, discussions, film screenings and stuff like that. Certainly we are like very much interested how to bring the past and contemporaneity together. In that sense, we are usually presenting one kind of iconic figure through the film work, or like kind of reenactments, different video works, screenings, exhibitions, etc., that try to contextualize like and present or give like knowledge and draw certain genealogies to the contemporaneities. In that sense, we are also like doing our catalogs, which is usually written by two of us, and is meant to be like kind of a workbook, which means that it has like kind of educational aims in itself. Our space, we understand like the festival as festivity still, and also as a living room, which is like more like kind of home related, or brings people that are welcome and are invited to to share their time after the performances with us, and to continue the informal discussion on the topics of the performances, or any kind of the topics that were tackled that day. In that sense, we are trying also to bring certain urgent topics, urgent topics that we think are not actually locally yet tackled enough or introduced, and we are trying to actually really much engage our local and international partners in our festivals. We wish and still in the future we hope that someday we will manage to make like kind of to make festival also like kind of academic or kind of informal school for dance, in which artists together with young curators, producer and so on could discuss and work on the festival topics with us and be educated and pass the knowledge to them.
Maybe one very important thing for us is basically to expand the notion of dance work and labor. So in that regard, not only finished dance works as theater pieces are included in our program, but also this different discursive practices, different, let's say, presentation of studio practices and so on. Also, we are very much for expanding the notion of choreography itself. So basically, we like to present things or initiate things or cushion things, dance works that are presented in different media. I think, let's say, this is for the certain kind of configuration of our curatorial approach is something for the introduction. I guess we have to move to the second question that addresses how crisis affected dance community. And I would say that basically it affected dance community more or less in the similar way than everywhere else, although some, let's say, effects might be bigger in some other context or even smaller in some different ones. We see basically the reduction, classical examples of symptoms like reduction of work, reduction of payment, reduction of opportunities outside of, let's say, our local contexts, or post-production is radically reduced because of the impossibility to travel, budget. We see, because we have to say very clearly that this epidemic situation or pandemic situation in Slovenia is also followed by other crises, which is basically right-wing government that we got just on the 13th of March, just at the time of the lockdown. And of course, we are witnessing some kind of urbanization of our context, which is connected also the way that cultural policies work here in Slovenia right now. That means that we are in the very precarious situation, especially NGOs. Yeah, so it's not only pandemic which affects us, but also total insecurity in terms of whether we are going to be able to continue. So also NGO network in the Republic of Slovenia is kind of endangered. Yeah, this is, I think, let's say, some kind of list of the problems that we are witnessing. Or would you add something to it?
No, I think it's more necessary that we move further, actually, and say how we coped with this situation. during the lockdown, now it's necessary also to say that now somehow the theaters are open again, and also performances are taking place since June already, although with smaller audiences and usually outside. So we still hope, and we are looking or we are programming in the way that co-festival will take place, and we will have live performances, which is very necessary to say in this situation. But during the lockdown, we had like regular meetings, and we try to think like how to what to actually program, or how to program, because we understand the curating also as a gesture, which is a public gesture, and should have some echo in the local context. In that sense, we after like a few weeks and like intensive thinking, we decided to invite different organizations, NGOs, and also like more progressive public institution to join at one meeting where we would present our idea of universal basic income for the most precarious artists in the field. Our idea was very ambitious, and we thought that somehow like between 10 or 20 organizations will join this idea or support this idea, and will share their part of their budgets, like approximately 20,000 per organization or something like that, with which we could actually all together support 200 precarious workers, which would think together like for a few months, maybe in smaller groups or in dialogues, and different meetings and setups at the festivals or different occasions about the situation, and also like about the production or processes that they would enhance in the future, that they would like to enhance in the future, which means more long-term collaborations, processes of work, sharing support between the organizations, like with technical support or money-wise and stuff like that. Unfortunately, this didn't happen, because when the lockdown ended and most of our colleagues turned back to their modes of operation that they were used from before, still we didn't want to stop our idea, and we decided to invite still like what we could with our small budget that we have, like 15 artists, and also ask them or give them possibility to invite another 5 or 4 that could join a process of 3 months, to be paid with 1,500 for 3 months, to establish kind of ideas like how to make dance sustainable, which is like one group of artists will be focused on this topic. The other group will think about architecture and the body, or movement and architecture, like urban spaces and public performances or site-specific performances. And the third, which is not completely elaborated at this very moment, but we were thinking about those procedures, principles, methodologies, or body works that are effective and are potent for the future of the, let's say, public sphere or our society in general.
Perhaps I would add that the group that we will work on dance and self-sustainability, this idea is also connected with the studio that we just have been hiring, but because of the very precarious circumstances, 2 organizations that we invited along didn't decide to go for these 2 studios. I think, let's mention some additional things very quickly that happened in the time of crisis, not connected entirely and only with the NDA Slovenia, but let's say in the context. There were some solidarity funds established for the precarious workers. We had a huge amount of advocacy work with different partners in the region, or in Ljubljana, to address these new cultural policies, or let's say gestures that we witnessed from our government. Then we, of course, at this time we had some extra time to focus on some our online let's say contents, but we don't want to give too much space and too much focus on online formats, we have to say. I think I think that would be.
I think we are long enough, and we will close now here our presentation, and maybe we can continue afterwards, like with a real discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Actually, you've been really working in this period of crisis. You were very productive, I can say. A lot of things and ideas came up. But I think also this was happening in Belgrade in a certain different manner. But maybe we can hear about it from Marijana more. Just briefly, also Marijana is colleague,
Hi,
friend.
can you hear me?
Yes, and I'm trying to introduce
Okay.
you a bit, but yes, and we know each other also for many years. She's a writer, researcher, curator, producer, teacher, a precarious worker in the field of independent cultural field, and she works also with the cultural policy and very much in performing arts or dance and performance. She's one of the co-founders of Station Service for Contemporary Dance and the Nomad Dance Academy that also was mentioned in the introduction of Jasmina and Rock. She's as well cultural activist in this independent cultural scene in Belgrade and in Serbia, and one of the founders of Association Other Scene and Association of Independent Cultural Scene of Serbia. She actively participates in the Cultural Center magazine, and she has been for years, or she is one of the founders of Condens Festival for Contemporary Dance. And she's very much active in a different international and regional activities related to dance, performance, cultural policy, and lately busy with thinking of different collaborative modes of dance and related with museums. And so if Marijana had some difficulties with the internet, and if she kind of faced this, she will just stop the image and she will continue talking. But we hope this won't happen because it's always great to see you and listen to you. So please.
Thank you, Biljana. I hope you can hear me. I'm very worried about the connection, so I might switch off my camera soon. And you give me a sign if you stop hearing me. Thank you for inviting me to this extremely interesting summer school program. And for putting me in this also interesting context with my colleagues from Ljubljana, Zagreb, and you from Skopje. I work, as you said, or develop my curatorial practices mostly through my work in Station, Service for Contemporary Dance, so the organization that was created as a service for dance community in Belgrade some 15 years ago, and that from the very beginning was trying to develop practices that would support on one side the artistic creation and production and artistic work of different artists in the field of choreography and dance. On the other side, to help development of this scene in the situation where there was absolutely any institution, public or civil, that dealt with contemporary dance in that period. So the practices of station, including its festival, Condens, established in 2008, always were about or have been around including community, working with the community, and trying to hear the real needs of this dance community. So when I think and work around the festivals such as Condens, I work always in a collective way, so in the same time the curatorial approach to making the festival is also collective, and in practice it means that the festivals programs have been made always in a dialogue with the community in Belgrade and in Serbia, responding to the needs, responding to their interests, responding to the blank spaces that can be spotted in their work or their let's say educational or developmental needs. So the program has been made in a way to respond to their proposals of different artistic practices, proposals of specific artists, proposals for educational programs or for other kinds of topics that were needed by the community. And this collective curatorial approach for us in Condens means that we try to be in a dialogue with all those artists and professionals from the field of performing arts that left Belgrade and Serbia during the years and that went to other contexts to work there because they could not continue their professional work in the field of dance in this country. So somehow Condens for us is a communication of those people who don't live and work anymore in Serbia, but are essential and important for development of our scene and for the practice of the artists that still produce here and are members of the dance community. This way of working allowed us also to reach many different other smaller or bigger communities because in this dialogue way, in this collaborative way, we presented the festival as an open space for different kinds of dialogues or for different issues to be raised, and was also an example of how artistic community can be built. As a result of this approach, we managed to make programs that are transdisciplinary, that involve different kinds of knowledge or different mechanisms of knowledge production that connect. They also managed, or this approach brought another quality, which is the quality of showing the capacities of dance to be the space for raising very different questions that are not necessarily dance questions or performing arts questions, but that are connected with what is happening in the society or what is happening in different realities that surround performing arts and that, of course, influence performing arts. As an example, I can say that that there are questions coming from the political field or from the field of feminist practices, theories, and policies, or that come from the field of economic field and the questions of labor in the field of performing arts, but directly linked to concrete economic policies that shape, of course, our cultural policies, and so on and so on. So this was for us the way to communicate dance as a kind of syncretic practice that can embrace different issues and topics and questions and propose answers that open up perspectives in different other fields, how to approach or how to digest the relevant political, economic, social, and cultural issues. So in a way, this approach of collective curating that we have developed through different editions of Condens Festival have made this festival a relevant place that is also changing the paradigm of what festival can be in this context, in the Serbian context. It made clear that a festival of dance doesn't have to be just a kind of nice facade of happy and beautiful bodies that entertain different audiences and amaze the audiences by beauty, whatever it is, but it can also be a critical place or a place of critical discussion and reflection of current social and other hot topics. And it has become a place that is relevant for really very diverse cultural practices, cultural and social practices in Belgrade and in Serbia. So in that light, of course, Condens and other stations programs are right now reflecting the questions of that are brought with the crisis. And I must say that somehow this crisis I saw actually as just sharpening of the critical situation that we have been witnessing for many years. So somehow it was just another layer of the crisis that we as a society, as the artistic community live in right now, and it helped us see much better, or it helped us make the others see much better how critical is the situation for all artists, intellectuals, and other people who struggle with the societies that are changing so fast and that are that make us lose any stable ground under our feet. The questions that were raised by this crisis, such as the question of what are the essential professions, is an important question also for the artistic field, because it made us rethink our own position in such a social structure. It made us think why arts and culture are important for the society and what it means to have a critical tools to think what is going on in such a drastic situation of a global pandemic that embraces the entire world. When it comes to the dance, somehow I think that this current crisis will not really stop people practicing dance in the way they did before the crisis, and I can see it around me in the place where I work, but also in other places. The artists are coming back to the studios. They are coming back to their rehearsals and their creative processes. Of course, taking all the measures to protect themselves and the other people, but somehow I don't think that this sanitary situation will prevent all of us to meet, to be together in one same space and to interact in a physical way. I think this practice of being together stays extremely important, because in a way it should be the way to counter to balance the mainstream discourse of fear of the others brought by the politicization of the virus, and that performing arts, and dance included, could be the spaces to find proper responses to these politicization to these discourses of politicization of the virus as an omnipresent danger among us, that make us be isolated from each other, and that make us think about how to stay far from another being as a potential bearer of a virus, or as a potential bearer of something dangerous for us, for our bodies. I think these are the questions that we need to raise, and it might be that during this conversation it will be tackled as well. But somehow I think that this is one of the topics that should be developed among the communities of performing arts more, in order to find, let's say, possible lines of thought for the coming months, because the coming months look like a period when there will be a lot of festivals, when there will be a lot of postponed programs, where people might come together, that people might perform live, and so on and so on. And we should not neglect the crisis and the let's say the conditions that are objectively there, but in the same time we should propose certain answers on why we need to be together, and why we need to show live works and make them happen, and make them be seen by different audiences.
Okay, Marijana, you need to wrap shortly. Yeah.
that's it. That's just the proposal for further conversation.
Thank you so much. I mean, you were going up and down with the sound, but I think that it was okay, so people could have really get the points. Thank you so much for raising up also the questions for communication later on for discussion. And the next is Jasna Jasna, and who is a colleague, a friend, a freelance dramaturg and writer based in Zagreb in Croatia. She's working in the field of performance, dance, literature, film, etc. She is assistant professor at the Department of Dramaturgy at the Academy of Dramatic Arts in Zagreb, and a member of editorial. She was a member of editorial board of the journal, Performing Arts journal Frakcija, and she writes a lot, different performance texts, short stories, essays, and published several books that I still haven't read, and I hope very soon I will, and including, I will just name them, Lecture as Performance, Performance as Lecture on the Production of Knowledge in the Arts, and Dirty Words essays on female sexuality. So please, Jasna, I mute myself.
Thank you, Biljana, and thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully, I don't see you, but they say you're there. So I'm going to read. I prepared something in advance, and I must say, first of all, that I'm not a curator like my colleagues that spoke before me, but a dramaturg primarily. So I'm going to give you more of a personal account of the theme of tonight's discussion. So it was my 36th birthday this year, the 21st of March. The same day, the number of recorded cases of people infected with the coronavirus in Croatia surpassed 200. 10 days later, on the 31st of March, it surpassed 800. On April the 14th, the number of active cases reached its peak of 1,258. On April 28th, the number of active cases dropped below 800. On May 7th, it dropped below 400. On May 26th, it dropped below 100, and on the 3rd of June, it dropped below 50. I know, so much numbers, I don't like them either, but please bear with me. However, on the 20th of June, the number of active corona cases hit 50 again, surpassing it the next day. 5 days later, on June 25th, it surpassed 200 again. On 5th of July, it surpassed 800 again. On July 6th, the number of recorded cases surpassed 3,200. And on August 20th, the number of active cases reached a new peak of 7,229. After that, I stopped checking the statistics. This is the third round table I have been invited to in the last 2 months about the impact of the coronavirus in the cultural field. I have declined one of them and accepted the other. And to this one, I couldn't say no because I'm part of the wider project of this school. I'm getting paid 120 euros for this, and I was paid 100 euros for the other round table I have taken part in. My participation in the third one was supposed to be free of charge, but that was not the reason I have declined it. The reason was that I have declined it was because it was the third round table I have been invited to in the last 2 months about the impact of the coronavirus on the cultural field. So here I am, September the 7th, 8, almost 9 p.m., reading something I have written 17 days ago on the 20th of August. I currently weigh 56 kilos and my heartbeat rate is 62 beats per minute, but it will probably rise a bit during this talk. On the day of writing this text, it was a beautiful summer Thursday. I woke up at 9:32 in the morning, and after doing my usual morning routine, I have spent approximately 4 hours and 27 minutes on writing, checking my email approximately every 32 minutes in between. In the last 24 hours, there was a total of 117 new cases of people infected with the coronavirus in Croatia, with a total of 307 people in hospitals, 19 out of which are on respirators. Yesterday, there were 311 new infected cases, and the day before that, 334, and the day before that, 369. I know, lots of numbers. Exactly 1 month ago, On the 20th of July, the Croatian Ministry, formerly known as the Croatian Ministry of Culture, has been renamed and is since then called the Ministry of Culture and Media. Approximately 2 months before that, on the 12th of May, the Croatian Ministry of Culture has published the last public call for allocation of funds for supporting artists working as freelancers whose work has been impaired due to the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. A total of 1,599 artists have been supported via 4 different public calls with varying amounts of money depending on their legal status and level of income. Approximately 16,742,000 Croatian kunas have been remunerated on basis of this call. I have calculated this amount by myself, combining various data dispersed throughout the internet, because there is no master document with information of this kind. Knowing that I prefer letters to numbers, please bear in mind that the Croatian government has passed its plan on recruiting army personnel, based on which a total of 915 new workplaces will be open in the Croatian army during this year. The funds for their employment have been granted by the budget of the Ministry of Defense, but although I have spent 43 minutes on Google trying to find the exact amount of money designated for this, I have not succeeded. During the last 4 months, Jeff Bezos' net worth has grown by approximately $24 billion, which presents an approximate 20% increase compared to the previous period. So at the time of my writing this text, his estimated net worth was 205,602,264,589 American dollars, but has probably grown some more. I'll repeat that one more time. 205,602,264,589 American dollars. I have written all of these numbers both numerically and alphabetically, because the millions come into play, it becomes increasingly hard for me to read numbers correctly, especially in English, but Croatian is also a problem. So sometimes even thousands represent a problem. Letters are much easier. In 2018, a total of 30,950 tons of tomatoes were grown in Croatia. During the approximate 93 days of lockdown in Croatia, I have seen 0 online performances, and I have participated in 2 online cultural projects created as a response to the corona pandemic. The rehearsals and subsequent premieres of 2 of my performance projects were postponed, as well as 1 foreign residency and 1 international conference I was supposed to take part in, this one. During the approximate 93 days of lockdown in Croatia, I have participated in approximately 27 online meetings, 26 of which were held via Zoom and 1 via Microsoft Teams. I have also tried Jitsi once, but failed. I have also held 1 public lecture via Zoom and an unidentified number of non-public ones using both Zoom, Skype, and Google Meet. During the month of April, a total of 2,349 tourists have entered Croatia, which presented a decline of 99.8% compared to the same period last year. As opposed to that, the number of foreign tourists that have entered Croatia during the month of July was 2,125,026. This presents an increase of 90,465%. 90,465% compared to the month of April. Although I have spent approximately 17 minutes on the website of the Croatian Bureau of Statistics and the Ministry of Culture and Media, previously known as only the Ministry of Culture, I have not managed to find analog data for the number of people that have visited theaters and other performance and or cultural spaces during the past months, or any other kind of data concerning the cultural sector. Apart from checking my email approximately every 32 minutes while writing this text, I have also exchanged a total of 185 messages, all of them through WhatsApp, and I have paid twice. Thank you very much. That's all for me. Biljana, I give you back.
Thank you, Jasna. Thank you for this performative action that you did, actually, in numbers. That totally. Did you count how many hours of work that you like to do? You did in the past week, let's say.
No. Maybe it's better that I don't count it.
maybe you enjoy also answering some mails, so that can count as well into the work that you would say the one that you like. And thank you so much. Then I would go for a discussion. I would open, let's say, the discussion. But because there was one question appearing even before from one of the participants of the summer school. Now I would read it, and it's for the dance historian. It's for Vevar. And it was more, it is from Lea Landau. She's asking, perhaps this is a question for later, she says, and that's why I didn't kind of cut you, because we said we will discuss later. But could you elaborate on how tuberculosis in the 1920s affected the dance and performance sector?
Okay, I have I have one example from one document from 1926. Basically, it was a kind of dispute published. This basically the series of articles and letters published in the Slovene liberal newspaper Dinost, which was published in Trieste. At the time, of course, the western part of Slovenia was under the fascist Italy, and basically what was this dispute was kind of titled Dance and Politics, and obviously it went from the early 20s, after Mussolini took over the power in Italy. It was ongoing discussion about the prohibition of the public gatherings, especially dance events. That means basically this is the kind of extended culture of dance. It was obviously the case of dance entertainment and dance gatherings that were not connected to the theatrical performances of dance, but basically it was the thing was that they basically prohibited, because of the danger of tuberculosis, and because of out of sanitarian reasons, they prohibit, the fascist authorities would prohibit public gatherings, mostly because they would be afraid that in the Slovene ethnical territory, these gatherings would evoke certain kind of revolutionary force. So basically, it's very interesting also because of the response of one Catholic newspaper. It was called Slovene, from Ljubljana, which said that Mussolini should have been more consequent also in some other territories and prohibited the dance gatherings, because this is the morally problematic thing. It was, but what is in this case interesting is that the authoritarian governments or powers always kind of uses the epidemics for their own authoritarian causes. I mean, it's a kind of very interesting dialogue that that it can be read. I know this for this case. I think in few biographies from the, let's say, late 20s, one can sense that especially in the perhaps kind of in the in the theaters that would or theater groups that would gather working class at the time, or working, you know, like workers who would do dance or theater, one can sense, for example, that during the 1920s, bad nutrition and or poverty in some cases, of course, resulted in the in some tuberculosis cases. But I don't know so many. I mean, I don't know particular cases in the, let's say, dance or performance sector itself. Just this basically Trieste example. But yeah, that's it. I think to add to this, I mean, dance history has published many books or examples or articles, of course, on AIDS epidemic and dance sector in the 1980s. And one can see also, one can watch also some documentaries on this, or at least some fragments which are very telling exist. I would, from Fran Lebowitz in the Public Speaking, his film of Martin Scorsese, Public Speaking, she claims that in New York, for example, in the early 80s, in dance circle, it's not the tragic thing was not that the choreographers died, but the whole basically audience died in 5 minutes.
Yes. Actually, this leads somehow to the question that I wanted to pose, and it's again related to audiences, especially because nowadays we are facing with the protocols and everything, this, how to say, downsizing of the possibility for one to participate in a certain event. So out of 3,000, it becomes 1,500, out of 15 becomes less, and etc., etc. But knowing that all the policies are made due to this economic perspective of numbering how we sell our, let's say, cultural and art products, what do you think, how this will affect in that manner? Because nowadays there is no, how to say, this articulation by the policymakers that as much as audiences you will get this this much can be your program value. So that means that cannot devalue your program through this numbering and this let's say how to say, yeah, numbering of the audience, rather than we should and they should find another type of measuring, let's say, the programs that we are doing, especially nowadays. What do you think, how this will affect actually in that larger discussion?
So maybe I can say how we see it here in the case of Belgrade and Condens Festival. Of course, this question of the numbers of audience is an extremely problematic question and perspective on the arts and cultural events, and it affects those that are situated in the field of cultural industries, where the arts and culture programs are machines for making certain profit. And of course, at the same time, the affected are the institutions that are under the pressure of the cultural authorities who fund them to make certain amount of audiences and of course to earn certain amount of money. But in our case, where the festival, the Condens Festival, is completely free and none of the programs are charged for the audience, we have another perspective perspective on this game with the numbers. My colleague Ana Dubljević, who is a choreographer, performer, and also co-curator of the festival, raised this question with the note that we have to take care of how we will make available all these programs that we are preparing for our October edition of the festival, to whom this will be available. If we have to diminish the numbers of people that can enter space, how can we then deal with this, let's say, list of people who can see the programs? Because it is probable that some of the programs will not be able to accommodate the usual number of audience, but that the number of audience will have to be less, smaller. So right now we are in the phase of reflecting of how to problematize this question of availability of cultural programs for certain people or for certain parts, certain amounts of audiences, and I think that it will be a kind of game or raised topic that will engage actually these audiences, these people who want to come and see the performances.
We lost
we
you,
will try
Marijana,
to make it not a mechanical. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So our current thinking goes towards coming up with a mode to engage people into thinking about how to make the programs available for different people and for more people than the rules of making the public theater spaces available for the audience. I don't know if it's clear what I just said, but I wanted to use this question of audience as an example of how producing a curatorial program of a festival can also engage into such questions, into such current preoccupations in the field of arts.
Thank you, Marijana. Actually, was a provocation, and of course, I see it critically when it comes to this indicating numbers as a kind of a value when it's concerning cultural and art events. But certainly, it will affect and affects a lot how we organize everything around what we are making at this moment, and it will affect probably the program itself. The festivals in one way, but the other programs such as like everyday programs of a certain organization, etc. But in some way I was thinking that it will go, how to say, it will be beneficial for us, which are trying to articulate different understanding of what this what we are doing in the field of culture and arts is produced as a critical apparatus more than this cultural industry that provokes only numbering of audiences. So in that sense, I was thinking how that would also affect in the programming that we do as a curators, as a producers, as the programmers, dramaturgs, and etc. Or maybe how also will maybe you can say, Rok and Jasmina, how it will affect, you think, the festival itself, because it will also kind of bring a different possibility to watch the performances. So it won't be the international audiences so much as it will be local. So also probably would raise the question how and what you communicate, or etc. I don't know.
I don't know. I would first say that dance field is very special, and it doesn't have like really huge audiences, which is like a surplus for us somehow. But during the years, like first now it was proved during this kind of opening up of theaters that all the performances were sold out, that were presented everywhere. Like even Mladi Levi, with repeating their programs or performances, they were always full of with the audiences. But for Co-Festival, I would also like to address that we were working so much with the audiences, or rather the public, and we didn't want to generate just like a consumeristic logic of like coming and consuming and leaving, but and selling performances. But it was more what we were dealing. It was like how to create like a circle of a public, of followers, of people that would come and stay with us for a longer period as much as possible. So we still hope that we will not lose the audience, of course, due to this crisis or the restrictions that we have. We will be using mainly the main venue at Kina Šiška, in which I don't know, like 160 or 70 people can fit now due to the restriction. So, and this, I think it will be kind of enough for us for this year. But of course, in the coming years or for the future, I think these kind of predictions are not very positive, or maybe in the opposite, they are very positive, and people will still be hungry for performances and live events. But somehow I'm aware that for sure some of the audience we are losing with the restrictions that we have, and also with the negative appearance of the cultural sphere itself, because like there is a lot of hate speech and also negative prescription about the cultural sector itself. Like, yeah.
In which sense?
Like
can you elaborate this?
The government is always like is repeating like as a mantra that actually the COVID is spread in the cultural events, like that people should avoid going to concerts, cinemas, theaters, and yeah.
Wow. So how to prevent this actually? What do you think?
What
are these other mechanisms how we should prevent this kind of propaganda, which is totally unreal?
There is one legal possibility in Slovenia possible, for example, that NGOs register themselves as churches or religion groups, because the religious liturgies and events are not prohibited. For example, on the 15th of August, I think we witnessed one pilgrimage church in the north of Slovenia, where 3,000 Catholics gathered, and there were no restrictions and no problem at all. So basically, there is this legal possibility that it's really kind of it's possible that, and some NGOs are really seriously thinking to register themselves as a kind of religious groups.
That's a super subversion.
Yeah, I would say that all the restrictions and these epidemics, I'm sure that we are going to see some kind of change of behavior, change of the way people are relating with each other, change of proximity, which is kind of course, for dance, proximity and touch for dance is something very crucial, fundamental. A lot of practices could have been erased immediately if touch would not be possible. So, for example, with this kind of situation, we decided this year that we could address this issue with the introduction of a program that would address voicing, having a voice in dance, and basically different examples of use of voice in dance and choreography, having in mind that basically voice is also a political one. So yeah, this was our kind of after big effort and after the program was constantly kind of integrating in front of our eyes, or all the suggestions were just impossible. We decided to do this year's co-festival on voice
and still stay international.
Because I think we of course we have to be responsible, but we cannot give up life just for bare survival. Yeah, and this is
Jasna, can you say something?
Yeah, I wanted to continue on this note of double standards, because in Croatia it's pretty much the same, although the government doesn't have the same agenda. They don't publicly attack the cultural field, but the double standards are fully on, because just 2 days ago we had the Festival of Freedom on the main square. It was a couple of thousands of people without masks, without anything. It was like anti-vaxxer, anti-corona kind of people who organized it. So it was a full square full of people without masks, without any protection, and without no one said anything. But the theaters and the cultural field has very strict rules, distance, masks, and so on. So it's pretty much a difficult time, to understand, okay, why this can happen. And also the 15th of August, obviously it was a big lots of church events happening all over the country. But another thing that I wanted to comment on about your first question, Biljana, about the audience and the dictatorship of numbers and so on, I'm afraid that another kind of dictatorship will also arise after this, which is a kind of dictatorship of digitalization or of online stuff, because I'm really curious how the new applications, the after Corona applications for funds will look like, because I'm sure there will be some kind of segment for what kind of plan B do you have to have your programs held online. And of course they will not, in the first wave everyone was okay, everything was very hectic, and just a Zoom was okay. But now I feel that more pressure will be put on finding out new creative ways of being together online and so on. And yeah, I'm afraid that they will say, okay, you can't have so much people live, but how can you reach even more people via the internet? So just yeah, a thought about that.
Wow, that is I never thought about that. Actually, I was thinking always on a live event. This is in a circle of my understanding what we should do. Yeah. And yes, there is double standard, just to add and kind of to fill the, let's say, the picture in Skopje or in North Macedonia, how it is. It's the same. But only, let's say, the difference with us and with you in Slovenia is because our NGOs, I think, cannot be, not I think, I know in the statutes it says it cannot deal with the politics in as a party politics or in with the religious issues. So therefore we cannot register ourselves as churches, but there is a really double standard that all these holidays what we had, people could attend, of course, churches. Now there are protocols for churches, etc., but it's not the strict standards for theaters and for institutions, but there were not protocols at all. and still we don't have open theaters, not other institutions. But slowly, somehow, shortly, some events started happening, mostly and especially organized by independent scene, using the spaces of institutions, and some institutions such as museums started. But still, no matter we were voicing for the protocols, let's say for the cultural institutions and us, it didn't happen. And what it's also happening, it's that we just started all these public events now, and it's kind of one by another. So now we are merging with Skopje Pride Weekend, which is happening at this moment. Before it was a feminist festival, and in between it was a dance festival. It will be a theater festival, and probably in this scope of time, and that we in South have kind of a larger or extended time of summer, we will have all these events, and afterwards still we are not we're expecting for the protocols. Even our schools are not going to start until 1st of October. So in this situation, probably it enforces us to rethink about all this, what you said, dictatorship of numbers. Jasna. And Marijana, I see you, and please say. And yeah, I think I have some questions. Go, Marijana, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that actually tells very clearly like why there are double standards everywhere. I think all the countries have witnessed these double standards, how culture and arts institutions are treated, and how religious institutions, also sports and other and industries, certain industries areas are treated by the states. One EU official was asked exactly this same question: how come that we can go to the planes, to the shopping malls, to the, I don't know, this kind of money-making places, and we cannot go to a theater or to a cinema? And he said, you don't have a good lobbyist. So this was his answer. So the lobbyists that need to create the conditions for the industries to continue money making are of course very active and very well paid for their work, while the arts and culture stayed somehow passive as fields in demanding and requesting the conditions for continuation of their work. And this is exactly why I said at the beginning that we as a sector, as actors, have to rethink or to think all together how to create arguments that would be loud enough towards the politicians, but also in the public sphere, in order to say that continuation of the artistic activities is necessary, not only for the artists and cultural workers who make their living out of this work, but also for the wide population, for the audiences of all kinds. So I think that we should not follow the rules as they are prescribed, but rethink them and try to find our own reaction, our own answers to this new situation, proving that what we do is important and has to be permanently open and available for people.
There is thank you, Marijana. I will slowly, we have to finish. Just there is another comment by Leah. She says, it's a comment, like I read it, yeah, they should avoid cinemas, museums, and theaters, but definitely go to shopping malls. Actually, it's the same, talking about double standards. And she says that this is how it feels like in Stockholm. So this is more or less, as we are saying, is same situation all over. But then she asked the question, what is the physical space of the theater at this very moment if no one can perform them in? No one can see the performances that it's happening. No one is entering the building. No one is guarding the building, etc. Is the theater now ruined?
The rhetorical question at the end, is the theater now
Totally.
But
yes.
you know what? I don't think so. I really don't believe this. You know, like, I mean, even if theater has to change or something, you know, like it's not so easy. I think I believe that art cannot be destroyed. I mean, art can be reduced, limited by authorities or powers, but it cannot be destroyed. This is what I somehow believe. Yeah,
maybe, or most probably in those places that it will still be forbidden, like formally, I think it will go more underground, and it will just change the form in that sense. Yeah. But I think it's very, very much like there are differences between the countries, and each country invented their own system, I think, or rules and restrictions.
Just today, I got one photo of Laibach performing in December of 1984 in one venue in Ljubljana called Malci Belic. It was the period when they were prohibited. The venue was crowded and packed. So I think we already have a certain kind of tradition of kind of subverting the rules, gathering in the illegally and so on. So I don't think that is going to be a problem if this will be needed at some point.
Yes, I totally agree, and I think it will find a way. Jasna, Marijana, this is...
I would just for the end say that I love ruins. Like my favorite place in the world are old buildings, destroyed old buildings. So I'm
Marijana, do you want something to add at the end?
No, I just wanted to say that we didn't mention the work of care that I think is extremely important right now, and that this work of care is maybe the substitute activity that the arts field should invest more into in order to overcome this period. And I also believe that this period will not last forever, but that it is a big challenge for all of us to defetishize or the institutions as we know them, and to rethink them and our own work.
Yes, I agree, and I think Leah is still commenting that she was more referring to the absence, to what absence is doing. But yeah, I think this is an ongoing discussion. We can continue in this sense. And I agree that probably ruin is not a bad thing as well as Leah. And I think all of us, but also rebuilding, reforming, and rethinking what this theater as a such institution meant, and it's going to be in the future. So yes, there is many more questions in front of us and the discussions. I hope we all enjoyed it. And Jasna, I hope that you don't regret that this is the one discussion you said that you're going to participate in, as well as Jasmina, Rok, and Marijana. Thank you so much. I enjoyed the discussion, and yes, and I hope that we will see each other very soon live and continue with many more questions that will come in front of us. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you to the
Thank you.
ones
Thanks,
who
bye-bye.
watched us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.